There are moments in life when the veil thins, when reality seems to crack just slightly, and through that fracture, a deeper light bleeds through. It might be in the stillness after a storm, or in the hush of an early morning before the world wakes. Sometimes it's triggered by pain, sometimes by awe, sometimes by a question so piercing it splits your soul open like a shell. Who am I, really? Why am I here? What is all of this? Spiritual awakening is not an idea. It is an unrelenting fire, a subtle earthquake in the soul, a whisper that says, "This is not all there is." It is the call to remember something ancient buried in the marrow of your being, something the world has trained you to forget. And once the call is heard, it cannot be unheard. You find yourself on a path you didn't know you were walking until the path turned into a mirror. In truth, awakening is not a single flash of light, but a series of thresholds. Each stage brings a shedding, a layer of identity, belief, or illusion dissolves, until what remains is not an improvement of the self, but a return to essence. You are not becoming someone new. You are unmasking who you were beneath the noise all along. And just as seeds do not bloom all at once, the soul unfolds in stages, each marked by its own paradoxes, initiations, and inner revolutions. These 5 stages are not linear like a staircase, but spiral like galaxies, overlapping and interweaving. You may dance between them, return to one, then leap forward into another without warning. This journey is not a curriculum. It is a soul migration, an alchemical unraveling. It defies control. It demands surrender. In the first stirrings, you may feel as if you are falling out of sync with the world. The conversations you once cherished seem hollow. The dreams you chased lose their shimmer. There is a quiet discontent that begins to bloom, like a mist settling on your life. Many call it a dark night, but it is really a womb, the beginning of your rebirth. And then comes the fracture. Perhaps it's grief, or a moment of overwhelming beauty, a loss, a sudden knowing. Something breaks you open like lightning splitting a tree, and through that rupture, something greater enters. A presence, a knowing, a truth too vast to articulate, yet too intimate to ignore. You are not merely a body or a name or a list of accomplishments. You are part of something vast, intelligent, and alive. The universe is not a cold machine. It is a conscious field, and you are not separate from it. You are it. Yet awakening is not all light and clarity. It is also disorientation, confusion, the loss of old maps. You may feel alone, suspended between worlds, the world you are leaving behind and the one not yet fully visible. But this space, however painful, is sacred. The caterpillar must dissolve into formless goo before the butterfly emerges. In this space, you are being reassembled. What follows are stages, initiations that the soul must pass through, not as rigid checkpoints, but as recurring seasons. Each one asks something of you: a release, a recognition, a reorientation. Each one gifts you with a deeper connection to truth, to source, to self. This exploration of the 5 transformative stages is not meant to be prescriptive, but invitational. It is not about diagnosing where you are, but recognizing the landscape you've already begun to walk through. Whether you're in the first whispers of awakening or deep within the spirals of transformation, there is something here for you. A mirror, a compass, or simply a reminder that you are not alone. Think of this journey not as a ladder to climb, but as a sacred unfolding. Like petals of a lotus, each stage opens you further to the divine light within. And like all things that truly matter, this process is both excruciating and exquisite. You lose what you thought you were, but you gain the truth of what you are. And so, we begin. To truly grasp the architecture of spiritual awakening, we must step beyond the idea that it's simply a moment of clarity or a euphoric escape from pain. It is instead an elemental metamorphosis, a transmutation of the soul's orientation, like a compass magnetically drawn from illusion to truth, from fragmentation to wholeness. At its core, awakening is not about adding anything new to your life. It is about subtraction, a holy unraveling. There are invisible structures that shape the way we see the world, mental scaffolds built from upbringing, culture, trauma, and repetition. These structures whisper, "This is how reality works. This is who you are." But awakening begins when you begin to see the scaffolding itself, when you realize you have been living not in reality, but inside a story, a simulation made of thought. The first crack in the illusion is not always gentle. It's more like seeing the gears behind the curtain, realizing the magician's trick while still applauding the show. And yet, even in the discomfort of this revelation, there is a strange liberation. The 5 stages of awakening are rooted in recurring spiritual motifs that transcend time and tradition. These stages are echoed in myths, in sacred texts, in dreams, in ancient rites of passage. They are not exclusive to mystics or monks. They live in the broken-hearted nurse who begins questioning what healing truly means, in the burned-out entrepreneur who senses there's a deeper success beyond numbers, in the artist who wakes from a dream and suddenly knows they are meant to create something eternal. One central theme in this journey is the illusion of separateness. Most of us grow up inside the trance of individualism. We believe we are solitary bubbles floating through a chaotic universe, disconnected from each other, from nature, from the divine. Awakening dismantles this lie. It shows you the web beneath the surface. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. The trees breathe out what you breathe in. The emotions of others ripple into you. Consciousness is not confined to your skull. It is the field in which all of this appears. Another core pattern is the death and rebirth cycle. Awakening is a continuous shedding. The ego, the constructed identity that believes it is separate, in control, and defined by past experiences, must die many times. Not once, but over and over. With each death, there is grief. You mourn the version of yourself you thought was real. But from that mourning comes a strange peace, and from that peace, a clearer light. You begin to notice, the deeper you descend, the more expansive you become. What felt like an end reveals itself as a beginning. Interwoven through each stage is the theme of surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of illusion. The surrender of the need to know, to control, to cling. You begin to trust the intelligence of the unknown. The mind will resist. It wants certainty, narrative, categories. but the soul knows that real awakening only happens when you let go of the shore and allow the current to take you. And yet, this surrender does not mean passivity. Paradoxically, it is in surrendering that you reclaim your authentic power, not power over others, but power rooted in alignment with your soul, with truth, with the deeper rhythms of life. You begin to act not from fear or programming, but from clarity. You speak not to be heard, but to resonate. You serve not to be validated, but because love flows through you as naturally as breath. Another subtle but profound concept is non-duality. Much of the modern world operates in binaries: good versus evil, light versus dark, self versus other. But awakening dissolves this division. You begin to see that light and dark are partners in transformation, that creation and destruction are two sides of the same breath, that even suffering, when met with presence, can become sacred. In the awakened state, opposites lose their sharp edges and begin to blur into unity. Finally, there is the calling home. The deeper you move through these stages, the more you feel a pull, not outward, but inward, as if something ancient and wise within you is guiding you back to your source, back to the place that never left you, but was obscured by noise. This home is not a place in the world, but a state of being. It is the peace that underlies all things, the stillness that watches the storm, the flame that flickers in the cave of your heart, untouched by time. These are the thematic rivers running beneath the stages of awakening. As we move into the deeper symbolic narratives, you'll see how these ideas, separation and unity, illusion and truth, death and rebirth, are not merely abstract philosophies, but living currents flowing through your life. They are the unseen hands shaping your evolution, the architecture of the invisible temple you are building with every breath you take. Imagine a vast desert stretching endlessly beneath a twilight sky. A lone figure walks across it, hooded, dusty, their face half shadowed by a fading sun. This desert is not a place on any map. It is the first landscape of awakening. It is called the Great Forgetting. The pilgrim has forgotten who they are, why they came, or what they seek. But something propels them forward. A thirst not of the body, but of the spirit. This stage is the beginning of all awakenings, the exile, a place where the soul begins to ache for something it cannot name. The desert is silence, and in its stillness, everything false begins to crumble. The pilgrim is stripped bare, not by force, but by necessity. The mirages of identity, success, and certainty fade, leaving only the burning question: what remains when all else dissolves? This is not a story. This is you. This is us. Every myth begins here, not at the mountaintop, but in the valley of emptiness, in the ache that says, there must be more than this. And then, as night falls, something shifts. The pilgrim stumbles upon a cave etched into the side of a forgotten cliff. Inside, there is darkness so thick it swallows sound. This is the chamber of shadows. In this sacred space, the second stage begins, the confrontation with illusion. Within this chamber are the reflections of all you've denied, pain, shame, guilt, ego, longing, resentment. They do not roar or rage. They whisper. They ask to be seen, not judged. Here, the pilgrim learns that what they ran from is what they must embrace. Every shadow is a distorted memory of love. Every wound is a doorway. To move forward, they must kneel not in defeat, but in radical acceptance. Within the myths of every ancient culture, this chamber appears. It is the underworld of Persephone, the belly of the whale for Jonah, the wilderness for Christ. Always, it is the place where death kisses you awake. It is not punishment. It is purification. It is where the soul is tested not for strength, but for truth. The pilgrim is no longer searching for answers. They are dissolving into questions. And then, light. Not from above, but from within. A flicker, a pulse, a glow that rises from the heart, like dawn blooming from behind a mountain. This is the third stage, the inner fire. Here, the pilgrim discovers that awakening is not something they must seek. It is something they already carry. The fire is not external wisdom or religious dogma. It is intuitive knowing, soul memory, the divine spark that was never lost, only forgotten. In this stage, the pilgrim does not follow the path, they become it. Each step forward is guided not by logic, but by resonance. This fire is sacred rage and sacred love. Both are forms of transformation. Here, the soul speaks louder than the mind. Old relationships, beliefs, and roles begin to fall away, not with violence, but with inevitability. Like leaves in autumn, the fire does not burn to destroy, it burns to reveal. As the pilgrim walks forward, the desert behind them becomes fertile. The cave becomes a temple, and ahead, a mountain rises. The fourth stage is the bridge between worlds. It is the paradox of being fully human and fully divine. The pilgrim stands at the edge of what was and what is becoming. They have glimpsed the sacred architecture of reality, yet they still feel hunger. They know unity, but must still wash dishes, pay bills, navigate grief. This stage is the integration of opposites. Here, the mystic becomes the monk and the merchant. The healer laughs at dirty jokes. The awakened one does not float above life. They root deeply within it. This is the alchemy of spirit and flesh. In many sacred stories, this is when the hero returns, not as they were, but as a vessel. Moses descends the mountain with new laws. Buddha rises from beneath the tree, not as a man seeking truth, but as one who has become it. The challenge now is not to escape the world, but to illuminate it. The awakened must walk among the sleepers not with arrogance, but with compassion. Their presence becomes medicine, their life a parable. And finally, the fifth stage, the mirror of the infinite. The pilgrim reaches the peak only to find no throne, no crown, no choir of angels. Instead, a pool of still water. They gaze in and see themselves, not as they thought they were, not the name, the age, the profession, but a boundless, luminous being woven of stars and silence, laughter and longing. They see all of humanity in their reflection. They see every joy and every sorrow, every mother and every murderer. and they understand nothing is separate. There is no other. There is only God, playing every role. The mirror does not show a person. It shows the whole. This stage is the return to essence, the dissolving of boundaries, the letting go of the need to be anyone at all. Here, life is no longer a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The awakened one does not cling to identity or enlightenment. They live as a question mark wrapped in gratitude. And so, the pilgrim disappears, not into death, but into presence. The desert becomes a garden. The cave becomes a cathedral. The fire becomes a hearth. The bridge becomes home. And the mirror, now still, reflects only the sky. Spiritual awakening, for all its cosmic depth and poetic symbolism, eventually comes knocking at the door of your ordinary life. It whispers not only in visions and dreams, but through traffic lights, bank statements, dinner conversations, and the tension in your shoulders after a long day. The real initiation does not happen on a mountain or in a monastery. It unfolds at the kitchen sink, in the boardroom, while changing diapers or sitting alone in a silent car. Awakening must root itself into the fabric of the human experience, or it risks becoming a hollow light show, all glow with no gravity. Once the inner fire is lit and the illusion of separateness begins to dissolve, life starts to ask new things of you. The questions aren't abstract anymore. They sound like, how do I speak my truth without abandoning compassion? How do I leave a job that pays well but poisons my spirit? How do I forgive the unforgivable? The symbols have become skin. The metaphors now breathe. Take the first stage, the desert of forgetting. In practical terms, this often arrives as an existential exhaustion. You might wake up and feel that your life no longer fits. The dreams you once chased feel like borrowed clothing, and you find yourself silently screaming in environments that once felt safe. There's no clear crisis on the outside, no house burning, no betrayal. But inside, the soul is knocking. Integration here means listening to that ache instead of numbing it. It might mean therapy, or long walks, or cutting back the noise. It may not be time to change your life externally just yet, but the shift has begun internally, and that matters more than you know. When you pass through the cave of shadows, practical life may feel messy. You'll find old traumas bubbling up in mundane conversations. Triggers flare in the grocery store. You start noticing the lies you tell yourself. Not malicious lies, but protective ones. I'm fine. This is just the way things are. Integration here means sitting with discomfort without rushing to escape it. It means practicing radical self-honesty. You might journal more. You might weep unexpectedly. You might find your dreams becoming more vivid. All of this is sacred data. The world outside may look the same, but within you, tectonic plates are shifting. And then comes the fire, that inner knowing, that defiant joy. This stage can be electric. You start speaking differently, choosing differently, walking into rooms with your heart a little more open. You say no to what drains you and yes to what sets your soul ablaze, even if it terrifies you. Relationships may change. Some people will not recognize the new language your spirit is speaking, and that's okay. Integration here means staying grounded. Don't rush to evangelize your awakening. Instead, embody it. Let your presence speak louder than your proclamations. Let your peace become your protest. The bridge between worlds is, perhaps, the most subtle and difficult stage to integrate. You've glimpsed unity consciousness, but you still need to file your taxes. You know you are not your ego, but your ego still reacts. You are aware of the divine in everyone, and yet someone cuts you off in traffic and you curse like a sailor. This is where spiritual maturity deepens, not in erasing your humanity, but in expanding your capacity to hold it all, the sacred and the mundane, the divine and the dysfunctional. You stop separating spiritual from real life. Everything becomes spiritual because everything becomes conscious. Integration here means finding ways to ritualize the ordinary, making your morning coffee a meditation, letting silence punctuate your day like commas in a poem. It means becoming impeccable with your energy. You no longer betray yourself to make others comfortable. You no longer chase shiny objects to avoid your shadow. You learn to stay, to breathe, to soften, even in the chaos. And then, when the mirror of the infinite arrives, when you begin to live from the realization that there is no real separation between you and life, between you and God, everything changes, yet everything remains. You still have to take out the trash. You still grieve. But you do so from a place of knowing that all of it is held. All of it belongs. The sacred does not require incense and chants. It can be found in the way you look someone in the eyes when they're hurting, in how you listen without interrupting, in how you speak, not to be clever or right, but to connect. In this stage, integration means you no longer have to prove your awakening. You embody it. You become ordinary again, but with a heart that has seen the stars. You laugh more, cry more, judge less. You move through life like a prayer, not because you're trying to be holy, but because you've remembered what you really are, a temporary wave of the infinite ocean. Awake, aware, alive. In practical terms, this might look like creating art that makes people feel, starting a business that prioritizes integrity over profit, raising children with more presence than perfection. You may be called to activism or to solitude, to service or to silence. There is no one formula. The awakened life is not one size fits all. It is uniquely yours to co-create with the divine pulse within you. Integration, in the end, means no longer seeking the path, but realizing you are the path. Your every step, your every breath, your every seemingly small decision is a brushstroke in the masterpiece of your becoming. And so here we are, standing at the quiet edge of a long and winding path, not with a final answer, but with a deeper question. You've walked through the desert of forgetting. You've trembled in the cave of shadows, ignited the fire of knowing, balanced on the bridge between worlds, and at last gazed into the mirror of the infinite. Not as an observer, but as a participant in the grand unfolding of consciousness itself. This journey has not given you new beliefs. It has stripped you of what was never true to begin with. And what remains now is something quiet, something vast, something undeniably you. spiritual awakening is not a destination. It is a revolution of perspective, a reorientation from self as separate and striving to self as sacred and woven into all. The stages are not locked doors, but invitations. They call you to remember, not in your head, but in your bones, that you are part of something immense, ancient, and living. That life is not happening to you, but through you. There is something breathtakingly humbling about this realization. It means you can no longer hide behind roles or righteousness. It means you are accountable for the light you carry and for the shadow you cast. It means your pain is not in vain. It is alchemical. Your joy is not random. It is resonance. Every loss, every longing, every quiet miracle you didn't know was a miracle. They were all part of the curriculum. Life has always been your teacher, and awakening is simply the moment you realize you've been in the classroom all along. But now comes the choice. Because this moment, this one right here, is the threshold between knowledge and embodiment. You can treat this journey as a beautiful insight, file it away like a poem you once loved, or you can let it change you, truly change you. Not in the loud, dramatic ways the ego craves, but in the silent revolutions that shift how you see, how you breathe, how you show up for yourself and others. In this choice lies your real power. Not the power to control life, but the power to participate in it consciously, intimately, reverently. Look around you. The world is starving for awakened souls, not just mystics or sages, but real people who live with open hearts, rooted presence, and clear eyes. People who can stand in fire and still choose love. People who understand that transformation is not a solo path. It ripples. It affects children, lovers, strangers. You don't awaken for yourself alone. You awaken for your lineage, for your community, for the earth. Every time you forgive, every time you choose presence over reaction, every time you listen deeply, you are breaking chains you may never see. Healing wounds you didn't create, planting seeds you may never harvest. And so, here is the final call. Do not rush back to sleep. Do not treat your awakening like a fleeting phase. Tend to it. Feed it. Let it disturb you in the best possible way. Let it reorder your priorities, dismantle your prejudices, soften your armor. Let it remake you from the inside out, not into a saint or a savior, but into someone radically, authentically alive. And if you feel lost again, good. That means you're growing. That means your spirit is asking for a new language. Go back to the desert. Sit again in the cave. Stoke the fire. Walk the bridge. Look once more into the mirror. The stages will meet you anew each time. They will never shame you for returning. The path is not linear. It spirals. It deepens. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time. The world may not yet understand the quiet revolution inside you, but it feels it. It feels the change in your eyes, the pause in your breath, the truth in your presence. You are the evidence of what's possible. You are the prophecy in motion. So take this sacred knowing, not as a shield, but as a light. Hold it with humility. Walk gently. Speak truth. And remember always, this life is not a prison. It is a pilgrimage. This pain is not a punishment. It is a passage. This moment is not random. It is holy. And you? You are not just waking up. You are becoming the dawn.